Antonio Mujica and his partner Alfredo Anzola received a small business loan from the Venezuelan government only months before the recall election. These corporate registration documents from Venezuela show the Venezuelan government owned 28% of the stock of another company they started, Vista, which adapted voting software for the Smartmatic machines in the 2004 elections. The Chavez government gave Vista, Smartmatic, and another company a $91 million contract to run voting machines for the 2004 election.
You're welcome to go, but you might want to help your friend. What's his name? It's not a gun. It's a taser, and he's under arrest, and I have the authority to use force to effect an arrest.
What are you doing?
Why are you guys grabbing me? Like, why are you guys grabbing me?
What are you doing?
We also have evidence now from other countries, other foreign partners who have evidence. In fact, they were watching the attacks on our election system, our election process on the 3rd of November, and they are willing to provide that directly to the president.
Hey everybody, it's Everett with Ohio for Freedom. So do foreign countries have evidence about our November 3rd elections they're willing to share with us? Is America at war and we don't even know it? What is Sidney Powell up to right now? And are Australian police now making arrests in Canada? A lot to talk about. Let's get started. Okay, let me get the usual housekeeping out of the way, but let me begin by saying it this way. I want to say thank you to this small but growing audience. If you are new to checking out this program, you may not know that about a month ago, Facebook really slapped the bots on us, and our distribution went down about 90%. But because people have done what I'm going to ask you to do right now, and that is please like, please share. Find Ohio for Freedom on Facebook and follow the page. And please leave a comment. Comment. If you don't have a comment, type in comment. And I appreciate everybody that did just that. But we are almost up to where we were about a month ago. I don't even want to think about where we would be if it wasn't for the Zuckerberg bots. But it is what it is. You can find us on Parler at Ohio for Freedom. It's at and then Ohio for Freedom with no spaces, no capitalizations. You can find us there. We publish on Rumble, and then we link to Parler, and then on then YouTube, and then we get to the Zuckerberg files. So want to say thank you very much for helping us. Okay, there's 4 things I want to talk about in this video, and one is foreign evidence that can help us. I want to talk about is America at war. I want to talk about what Sidney Powell is up to. There is some news there. And then, I want to talk about this Australian police in Canada thing. There's a twist, but not really. But let me set it up this way. I was checking out some news over the weekend, and I listened to Lou Dobbs from the 18th, which would be Friday, and he had on the program General Michael Flynn. And General Flynn said something that is like, What? I hadn't heard anybody else say this. And as soon as I heard this, I get on my phone. I'm searching to see if it was referenced anywhere else. I couldn't find it on his Twitter feed. Finally, by Sunday evening, there was just a headline that the Epoch Times ran on it, but it was just referencing that appearance on Lou Dobbs. So I want to talk about that. But before we do, I want to play a clip from that same program on Lou Dobbs, and I want to introduce this subject about America. Are we at war and we don't even know it? Let me play the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
The United States is under a full and ongoing assault by at least 3 nations. Russia is suspected of carrying out the most devastating cyber attack in American history, and it is apparently getting worse by the day. The Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, believes Russia, Iran, and China interfered in the November election as well. Fox News is now told a number of senior intelligence analysts adamantly support the Director of National Intelligence's assessment that China did indeed seek to influence the presidential race. But there is also resistance within the deep state and the intelligence community in particular, trying to contradict the DNI.
All right, that is a lot to unpack, actually, but I'm going to take a stab at it. And I basically want to ask this question. Is America at war without us even realizing it? What is war? What is cyber war versus conventional war? What does conventional war even look like? In that program, Lou Dobbs mentioned that there are at least 14 government agencies that have been affected by this hack through SolarWinds Orion. If you're not familiar with that, you can back up an episode or two, but there was a big deal. And there was a visit, a raid, if you will, to their headquarters about 10 days ago now in Austin, I believe it was. But the point is that this is massive, folks. It's absolutely massive. And you're not even really hearing that much about it. It has affected Treasury. It has affected defense. The Pentagon shut down some of their cyber communications for a while. It's been reported in some places that it has affected our power grid. Would it be a big deal if power went down in your neighborhood for like a week? It's been even postulated that it might have affected our nuclear codes, which would kind of be a big deal if somebody was trying to ruffle our feathers. This is a really big deal. And he mentions that people are mostly crediting Russia as being involved in these cyber attacks. I kind of feel like that's probably just a talking point. But maybe it mostly is Russia, but certainly China is referenced as having interfered with our election. And Director Ratcliffe has said that Russia, Iran, and China have interfered with our election. So this is a big deal. But let me just ask you this question. What does warfare look like today? Is warfare only, when you see troops on the ground and when you see tanks rolling down the street? What is conventional warfare? Because when I think of just whatever mental images, come to you when you're thinking about Afghanistan, when you're thinking about Iraq, it actually looks a little different than when you think about World War II, which looks a little bit different than when you think about World War I, which looks a lot different than when you think about the late 1800s when the cavalry would come riding in, which looks quite a bit different than what conventional warfare looked like during the Civil War, which looked way different than what warfare looked like during the Revolutionary War. So when you have the ability to hack just about everything that we interact with, when you have the ability, as China does, to compromise legislators and judges and mayors and governors, and you have in the hip pocket leaders in business and leaders in education, when you combine all of that together with election interference, is that war or is it not? Something to think about. I want to play this clip with Michael Flynn speaking, General Flynn, and then we'll talk about that.
And we have to, everybody's got to take a deep breath and back up and say, okay, with all of the egregious behavior that we have seen on our election security, we cannot stand for foreign influence, which we have direct evidence of foreign influence. We also have evidence now from other countries, other foreign partners who have evidence. In fact, they were watching the attacks on our election system, our election process on the 3rd of November, and they are willing to provide that directly to the president. So we now have that evidence, and we received that today. It's very, very important. So there are foreign partners and allies that are willing to help us, but this foreign influence against our election security and into this SolarWinds system is really, really dangerous.
Did you hear what I just heard? I mean, that's a lot to unpack. Foreign nations observed our elections here in the United States on November 3rd, and they have direct evidence. They have direct evidence that they're willing to provide directly to the president, and he said we received it today, the 18th of December. Now think about all of the evidence that we've heard about, from backdating ballots to H and S, which I'm not going to say out loud. You have to go back to a previous episode to understand what H and S is, but I imagine you probably know what I'm referring to. algorithms, ballots ordered from China, hundreds of thousands of ballots transported from the state of New York to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. The list goes on and on. Lack of observation of Republican workers in polling places. This is something brand new. Nobody's talked about this before. This is direct evidence provided to us by our friends and allies from overseas. And he said we received it today. Well, what was today on the 18th? Do you think they had a certain executive order in mind? The executive order the president signed in September of 2018 that gave a date of the 18th of December 2020 for a report to be delivered from the head of DNI to the president. It shows up on the 18th. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know why anybody isn't talking about this, but this is very, very significant. And we'll come back to this. I want to play a 19-second clip from this same Lou Dobbs program. I'm just going to play it, and then we'll talk about it. It's going to seem like it's coming out of left field, but I'll explain. So just bear with me. It takes 19 seconds. Here we go.
I'm not aware of any instances where Smartmatic's technology was banned in the U.S. Again, it is my understanding that outside of one customer in Los Angeles County, Smartmatic has no presence in the voting technology marketplace in the United States.
Now, that clip that I just played might as well have been a Smartmatic commercial, a commercial for how wonderful, how pristine, how above board, how reputable, how honest, how pure as the wind-driven snow Smartmatic is. And it appeared yesterday at the very end of the Lou Dobbs program. Now, the reason I included it is because of this. I've got a little habit, all right, and that is when I encounter a piece of news that I think I'm going to want to go back to, especially if it's a video clip that I'd like to be able to reference, I will email the link to myself, and very often I will put the time stamp or like the how many minutes in that I want to be looking for. And so I did that yesterday afternoon when I heard General Flynn talk about our friends and allies with this information. I don't want to forget this, so I email it to myself. So later yesterday, I grabbed the clip of General Flynn that I just played. This morning, I decided I wanted to grab some earlier moments from that Lou Dobbs program. I run exactly the same link. I'm talking to you about PSYOPs right now. I'm talking to you about censorship, okay? I run exactly the same link, I mean, I checked it in my email, I checked it in my phone, I checked it in the history of my computer, and what yesterday was a full 37-minute piece of video, because the program is about an hour long. You take out commercials, it's about 37 minutes. When I run that link today, the only thing that they left in there was the 19-second Smartmatic commercial. Folks, I'm not making this up. That's why it is so important that you keep the faith. So important that you keep the advocacy going on, the belief going on. Keep the mojo, folks, because they are working overtime to affect mind games on the population of the whole world. I'm getting correspondence from people, not just in America, that are very much watching what's going on. So I want to include that. It was one of those go figures that I wanted to include. But folks, when we talk about friendly foreign nations sending to us evidence, well, what kind of evidence would they be sending? I mean, they weren't over here physically watching anything. It has to be cyber information, cyber evidence, computer information. And is that really so strange? No, it's not, because, folks, this whole movie, the movie of the election looks one way on the night of the election, and you wake up the next morning, it looks different. This is a movie we have seen before, and people around the world have noticed this before. So I'm going to play a little bit of a piece of video that I played in last episode, but a little bit more. I don't want to play it in its entirety because I'm pretty sure the Zuckerberg bots will take it down. But this is from an honest piece of journalism that was produced by, believe it or not, CNN from 2006. Let me roll the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
A $91 million contract to run voting machines for the 2004 election. The next year, the owners of Smartmatic, primarily owned by Venezuelan businessmen, bought Sequoia, one of the top electronic voting system companies in the United States, for $16 million. Smartmatic is a labyrinth of international holding companies owned by Venezuelan businessmen. Smartmatic Group NV of Curaçao, Netherlands, Antilles owns Smartmatic International BV of Amsterdam, Netherlands, owns Smartmatic Corporation of Florida, which bought Sequoia Voting Systems of California, USA. When Smartmatic bought the U.S. voting machine companies, the U.S. government did not review the sale. Many experts say those voting machines were manipulated in Venezuela to give President Hugo Chavez a victory. Exit polls done by the U.S. firm Penn, Schoen and Berland had Chavez losing 41% to 59%. But the next day, Chavez declared victory, reversing the score, saying he won 59% of the vote.
Doesn't that sound a little familiar? You go to bed on election night and it looks one way. You wake up the next morning, it's completely different. Yeah, we've seen this movie before, folks, and it's not just in Venezuela that it's happened. But make no mistake, when you make a $90 million deal, a $90 million contract with Hugo Chavez, that election is going to come out the way Hugo Chavez wanted it to come out. But this is a story that we've heard before. And then the earlier part of that clip, when she's talking about the ownership of Smartmatic. Now, they're trying to say right now that Smartmatic, which is software, okay, it's not Dominion, but does Dominion use Smartmatic? Is that the issue? But if you noticed in the earlier part of that clip, she goes through all these different companies, that this shell company bought that shell company. You know, then that shell company can go bankrupt, so somebody buys it from its creditors, whatever. So you can move all these shell companies around, these different entities in different nations. And so it's very easy at any one given point in time to say, there's no connection. When in fact, you know, there is a connection if you go back and chase the paper trail down all the different entities and states and wherever nations that it went to. But this is a story that we've heard before. So now I'm going to switch gears. I want to talk about what Sidney Powell is up to these days. But the way I want to do that is she was in a meeting on Friday evening, I believe, and in attendance were Michael Flynn, General Michael Flynn. And by the way, remember who General Flynn is. For a short while, he was National Security Advisor to President Trump before he got framed by Cardinal Comey. This guy has credentials, and I got to say, General Flynn is an amazing man. When I saw him on Maria Bartiromo, not yesterday, but the weekend before, and she played clips of Comey talking about how he entrapped him, and General Flynn is just so statesman-like, and I mean, I'd have been livid, I'd have come unglued, I might have said something that I wish I hadn't said. This guy is a class act, but he was in attendance. Sidney Powell's in attendance. Obviously, the president's in attendance. That Cipollone, his lawyer, was in attendance. Mark Meadows, chief of staff, was in attendance, and Patrick Byrne was in attendance, former CEO of Overstock.com. I played a small portion of a clip from him last episode. I'm going to play a little bit more because it is highly significant to today's discussion.
If you hear this and you give me 90 seconds, your viewers will understand what's happened in the last 5 years in America. I've been waiting to say this on mainstream TV, and they will not have me back because once they understood what this was about. I had Hillary Clinton. I caused Hillary Clinton. I facilitated a bribe, and she took a second bribe for $18 million. And I worked with the FBI as I did that. They're deeply involved in this. They came to me 3 days later and told me I had to forget about it and forget that it ever happened. And I said, "What are you talking about?" And they gave me one excuse. They said, Hillary's going to win, and it's been decided upstairs. Nothing's going to be able to stop that now. So she's going to win, and she's going to send her people over to the FBI and ask who was part of investigating Hillary, and any of us who were part of it are going to be destroyed, and that includes you too, Patrick.
Did you hear what he just said? He said that working with the FBI, he facilitated Hillary Clinton taking a bribe in 2018. Then a short time later, the FBI says, forget it, we're not going to pursue it because Hillary is going to win. Now, before I lose my train of thought, who would have facilitated Hillary Clinton winning? We'll come back to that. But let me say, I'm sure a lot of you have seen this clip, but a lot of you probably haven't. And if your first reaction to Patrick Byrne saying that he facilitated an $18 million bribe with Hillary Clinton, you might be tempted to say, this guy's crazy. Well, I got news for you. I know one person that evidently does not think he's crazy, and that would be President Donald John Trump, because Donald John Trump had him in that meeting that happened on Friday. But now, bear with me, because I want to tell you a story. And as relates to this $18 million bribe. You remember the story of Harrison Deal. I was going to do yet another video on Harrison Deal, but I feel like that story's pretty much out there. But I was contacted by a number of people that wanted me to know about that GBI, that Georgia Bureau of Investigation agent that committed suicide at age 51 when everything looked great. But he was also the agent that probably was involved in investigating Harrison Deal's tragic accident. And the way that we would know that is because if you read his obituary, he was a special agent in charge of crime scenes. And if you dig a little further, you will find out that the area in which Harrison Deal's accident took place would have been this agent's area. But I got those, was looking into that, and I called a friend of mine. Now, bear with me. My friend is a former DEA agent. He's no longer with the DEA. He's moved on into civilian life. But prior to becoming DEA, he worked for the city of Pittsburgh on the city of Pittsburgh Police Department. He was very, very good at undercover work, and he was on more or less special assignment, working almost constantly with the Attorney General because he was very good going undercover, lots of big drug busts, lots of felonies, that sort of thing. So he caught the attention of the DEA, and they recruited him. He wanted to make the move, and he did make the move. His last day at the City of Pittsburgh Police Department, he goes to his locker. And inside his locker is an envelope. And that envelope contained 75 $100 bills, and there were 2 giant bottles of Wild Turkey. Okay, I guess that's a really expensive, I don't do liquor, okay? He goes to his duty officer, and he says, I think somebody left something in my locker. His duty officer says, no, that's yours, take it, and good luck. Well, my friend never went back to that locker. He never took the $7,500. He never took the 2 bottles of Wild Turkey. Why? Number one, because he's honest. Number two, he knows that $7,500 was a way for the City of Pittsburgh Police Department to always have something over his head. It was an insurance policy that when they needed him to look this way or look that way, that he would be on board with that because they had something on him. Who wanted Hillary Clinton to take that bribe? I'm kind of going a little bit around the mountain here because we're going to get to that meeting, but I want to play you a little piece of video that I grabbed from Dr. Corsi, and I think this will all kind of make sense, but just understand that everything that we've just talked about and everything that we're going to talk about in just the next few moments, President Trump knows all this. Let me play this clip.
No, that wasn't sitting, and this is in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that wasn't sitting well with me, and I'd like to know why we had almost a year before the election. They could have had me and another person in front of a grand jury in a week and gotten her indicted. And they told me, and this is the key to understanding what's happened in America. They told me, this is word for word, Patrick, what's really going on is this. President Obama has his people across the federal bureaucracy at this point, but especially the Department of Justice, Hillary Clinton is going to be president for 8 years, and nothing's going to change that. But think of there being a Bunsen burner within the Department of Justice. That evidence about the 2 bribes you were part of gathering is going to be sitting on the Bunsen burner. And the hand on the Bunsen burner is going to be one of Barack Obama's people. If Hillary's a good girl and defends Obamacare, that flame stays low. If she's a bad girl and thinks for herself, it's going to get turned up high. That way, Barack Obama is going to manage Hillary Clinton for the 8 years she's president, and then she's going to step down, and Michelle's going to run. And Patrick, that's the plan.
Okay, that clip I had. This next clip from Dr. Corsi, I didn't. And this is the one that helps you connect a whole lot of dots.
What you know now, do you wish like you had a third term? And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. I'd be fine with that.
Folks, Joe Biden was bombing. He was bombing in the primary. He couldn't win a race to save his soul. He couldn't campaign his way out of a wet sack. Then all of a sudden, they get to South Carolina, and it all turns around, and just as magically, all the other contestants, all the other candidates, just instantly and magically line up behind the heir apparent. And who do you think was really pulling the strings? Who do you think is really involved in what we're battling out right now? Here's just a clue. Who's the only president in your lifetime, maybe in the whole history of our nation, that never left the city of Washington after their term of presidency was over? All right, we're going to move to this article by the Gateway Pundit, and it'll be the quickest way for us to kind of pull it all together as far as this meeting that took place on Friday the 18th, and yes, we're talking about what Sidney Powell is doing right now. Article from the Gateway Pundit, 12/20, published at 9:34 p.m. Headline, Betrayed from Within, Patrick Byrne blasts White House staff after attending election meeting with President Trump, Sidney Powell, and General Flynn. We're going to click down to this paragraph right here. It's 100% winnable. No martial law required. Sidney and Flynn presented a course that I estimate has a 50 to 75% chance of victory. His staff just try to convince him to do nothing but accept it. As a CEO, my heart broke to see what he's going through. He's betrayed from within. He truly believes he won, and he truly did win. I did not vote for him, but I don't want to see our country hijacked in a psyop. Too nice. Thinks he will look bad in press. Nonsense like that. He wants to fight on. They are bending over backwards to come up with reasons to tell him he can't do anything. He needs to fire them all or he loses. And we continue. My involvement is I was in the room when it happened. The raised voices included my own. I can promise you President Trump is being terribly served by his advisors. They want him to lose and are lying to him. He is surrounded by mendacious mediocrities. In addition, any suggestion if there was a talk of a military coup or martial law is also a flat lie. 100% false. I was there for 4.5 hours. I heard the entire conversation. That's a 100% fabrication. And looking at the photo, it certainly looks as if Patrick Byrne was in the White House. Okay, so Patrick Byrne put out a series of tweets that basically substantiate that story, but that story probably, at least to my perspective, is one of the quickest ways to pull it all together. So what did he say? First of all, in no certain order, but he said the president is ill-served by advisors that are mendacious mediocrities. Now, if that's true, it's very, very sad that the president would have anybody close to him that would be encouraging him to concede. But Patrick Byrne also goes on to say, if he said it's 100% winnable, but he also goes on to say that General Flynn and Sidney Powell laid out a plan that has, in Patrick estimation, a 50 to 75% chance of working. And he goes out of his way to say that martial law was not discussed. Now, martial law may not have been discussed. That doesn't mean that it's off the table altogether. And I've always said that you would, prefer to avoid it. It's the plan you'd rather pass on, but you'll implement it if possible. So just understand that the president knows everything that Patrick Byrne knows, but the president knows some things that Patrick Byrne doesn't know. And then I'm talking about what Sidney Powell is doing right now. Well, Sidney Powell does have cases that are on the docket of the Supreme Court. Will they take them? Will they take a look at the evidence? I don't know. If she's presenting some of this evidence that some of our foreign friends have given to her, that our allies have given, it might make a difference. But it's just interesting to note. And then there was a story, I didn't have time to grab the link, that evidently Sidney Powell was coming out of the White House on Sunday evening, and reporters asked, what'd you talk about? And she said, none of your business. So I love it. So folks, I can't say exactly how all this is going to shake out, but the president is well armed, and people like Dr. Corsi believe that Joe Biden could be served with some ultimatums here very shortly, and that would be the end of it. I don't know about that. So anyway, hope this was helpful. I'm going to wrap up with this notion of our Australian police making arrests in Canada, and let me be quick to say, no, that's not happening. But I'm going to play you just a little bit of a clip that I teased in the beginning. And you've got police in Calgary that are arresting a young man. Why? For being outside during a pandemic, being outside and playing hockey on the ice. And it just reminds me of the Australian police that we've probably all seen arresting that young pregnant mother for simply posting on Facebook a protest rally. She hadn't gone to a rally, hadn't left her home. They showed up and hauled her out of her house for posting on Facebook. And it makes me wonder if Australian police have made it all the way to Canada. And that is meaning no disrespect to our Australian brothers and sisters that I believe are under siege. But let me play this clip, and then we're going to put a bow on it.
What are you doing?
Yeah, like videotape this.
Hey,
videotape. What are you doing?
What are you guys doing?
What are you guys doing?
We were under arrest.
Why are you
What are you doing?
Why are you guys grabbing me? Like, why are you guys grabbing me?
What are you doing? What are you doing?
For being outside playing hockey on the ice. Unbelievable. And I don't know, I guess maybe that's good police work now. You got to knee somebody trying to knock them over. This is just unbelievable to me, folks. But I'm going to run the whole clip. It's 4 minutes in case you might want to watch it when we finish up here, which we're finishing up here. I do have to warn you, it has a little bit of language in there. I'm not going to take the time to bleep it out. If that offends you, then don't watch it. But this election with Donald Trump is so important because we've got to liberate America. We've got to liberate Ohio. And then I think once we liberate Ohio, we need to send militia to Canada and to Australia and to New Zealand. And we need to help the patriots all over the world take their freedom back. I hope this was helpful, y'all. Please like, please share, please subscribe on YouTube. Please hit the notifications bell. Please leave a comment, even if it's only a comment or an emoji. Until next time, y'all. God bless you. By the way, God's got this. God's got this. Do not get discouraged. Bless you, bless your family, bless the state of Ohio. God bless the United States of America.
I hear the sweet sound of freedom, and I won't be long.
Just tell me. For what? I just told you. For what?
You're going against the health regulations in Alberta.
What is it? What's the health regulation?
Get off the ice. So this is the thing. We've told you that you're going against the health regulations.
Oh shit.
Yeah, but what is the health regulation?
Oh
I don't know
shit.
the health regulation.
Just shut up. Let's go. Let's just go.
Hey, let's go.
What's his name?
We're just gonna go.
You're welcome to go, but you might want to help your friend.
Yeah, he's
What's his name?
Why are you grabbing him? He's gonna go.
It's not a gun. It's a taser, and he's under arrest, and I have the authority to use force to effect an arrest.
What is he under
No,
arrest?
we'll just leave it alone.
Okay,
Let's
so
go.
what's his name?
Oh, let's go.
Oh sh.
No, he didn't.
So listen to me.
And I heard him say,
What are you doing?
Yeah, like videotape.
Hey,
what are you doing?
what are you guys
What are you guys
doing?
doing?
You're under
Why are you
arrest.
why are you
What are
grabbing
you
me?
doing?
Why are you guys grabbing me? Like why are you guys grabbing me?
What are you doing?
Whoa,
What are you doing? Whoa.
What are you guys doing? Hey, relax. Hey,
Down on the
talk
ground.
to me.
Down on the ground.
Why are you guys grabbing me?
You guys just need
Why are
to
you guys grabbing?
Hey, orcs.
Not pulling. Ocean, get on the fucking ground.
Ocean.
before you get
Get on the
tasered.
ground.
Why are you guys
Get
Get on
on
the fucking ground right now.
Ocean.
Like, why
Get on the ground before I fucking taser you.
Ocean.
Right now.
Why are you tasering? Like what? I'm
You
just
are not.
talking.
Ocean, just get off the ice.
Ocean, just get off the
The
ice.
ice, but don't touch me.
Just get off the ice.
Why am I going on the ground?
Get on the ground.
What are you guys doing?
Dude,
Like,
Ocean.
Guys, they're trying to get compliance. Okay, please back off. Okay. Hey, peace.
What's wrong with you? Stop. Stop.
what are you?
Just let him go. Like,
Let him take off his skates.
We're
Come on.
literally leaving. He gave us the warning.
Hey, like we're
Let him
leaving.
take off
We
his
got the
skates.
warning.
Get on the ground.
Why are you guys doing this? I haven't done anything wrong.
He gave us a warning. We're all leaving.
He is not leaving.
I just
Let him
asked
take
you
off
what
his
you guys were
skates.
doing to that little kid.
Well, I know, but you gave us a warning and you said we're all okay.
Yeah, this is going on the fucking news for sure. Just for skating on the outdoor rink, eh?
Leaving with me.
As long as they're finished dealing with it, okay?
Finished, like, what? You guys asked him to get off the ice. Keep videoing. You guys asked him to get off the ice. He got off
What
the
are
ice.
you guys doing? What are you guys doing?
We're arresting you.
For what? For what? For what?
Ocean.
For skating on the ocean.
For what?
Please, okay?
Ocean.
Don't taser me. I'll get handcuffed.
Get on the ground then. Get on the fucking ground.
What are you doing?
Yo, look at this police brutality. Police brutality. Hands behind your back.
Come closer. Come closer.
Yo, let's pose this a little bit.
Guys, please. Back off.
Back. I am back.
Back off.
This is why this situation is funny.
Back off, guys. If you're not involved in this incident, then don't be here, okay?
How old are you, sir? How old are you? Yeah, look at these 21. Look at these police. This is their life. What they do to people. Look how they
Back off.
mental. We're skating here at an outdoor rink. Touch me. Social distance.
I dare you.
Hey, videotape me. Videotape, man. We're playing outdoor
Works, eh?
aware of not being able to play outdoor hockey, okay? These police are handcuffing me. We're outside. This is our life. We're fucking humans. We can fucking do whatever the fuck we want.
Gotta do it too, man.
Like, look at this. What kind of fucking life do we live in?
And they're threatening to taser
We're
you.
outside having fun.
fuck?
We're outside having fun.
ask you guys.
Where's our freedom? Where's our freedom?
What's your name and badge number?
Where is it? Just tell me.